Hello and welcome to today's episode of the podcast. I'm so excited today to share with you because I have got such an exciting guest today. She has been in the health industry for over 30 years. She's worked in physical therapy. She empowers people to help heal themselves, and she's worked with athletes over time. I'm so excited to learn more from her. And she's from the United States as well, which I always love because that's where I was born and raised. And I just want you to welcome today with big open arms, Deborah Walker. So I'll invite her to the stage.
Hello,
welcome, Deborah.
Hi.
How are you today?
Thanks, Colette.
Oh, pleasure. Oh, how's it been this week? I mean, it's been a heavy one for me. It's like busy running around with my kids and stuff, and
Right.
the rush to Thanksgiving and getting ready for Christmas.
Yep, I hear you. Thanksgiving's my favorite holiday, so I'm very excited. I have family visiting, and my daughter's going to be off next week, so really excited for it.
Oh, that's brilliant. Do you have a big family gathering then for your Thanksgiving?
I have a very small family.
Oh, nice.
I have a very, very small family, so it's fairly intimate.
Oh,
thankfully, we all get along because we can't avoid each other.
Yeah, no, that
avoiding
is
anyone.
Nice. I think you get better relaxing in that way because when it's a big group, it's like you're exhausted from all the socializing.
I hear you.
Yeah. Oh, well, thank you so much for joining us today. I mean, Deborah and I, we met we met at a virtual work conference. It was like an industry-led conference in the knowledge industry. Yeah. And when I saw that she worked with people, especially, actually, it was when I heard that you worked on people's feet. That's what really caught my attention, was like, oh, she's like into like foot health and making sure you look after them. And I thought, oh, as a runner, like I have got to reach out to her. So
big time. Yeah, I focused the last 6 years primarily on the foot and ankle. That being said, the foot and ankle is impacted by everything going up above it, but it impacts, it is the foundation for everything above, but it's impacted by our alignment above as well. So it really kind of, even though I say foot, it really can be impacted by the entire body. In fact, I just read a research paper that talked about the jaw, the TMJ joints, and how impacting the TMJ will impact the forces acting on the foot.
Oh, that's
pretty, again, so even though there's specialties, it's all connected, and you really do have to have a comprehensive view in order to really be able to serve the people that you need to serve, especially the tough cases.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I love how you talk about like everything being connected, because you're so right. And I'm sure you'll be able to tell us all about how, it flows upwards. I mean, for me, the love of the foot came from when I was taking my pregnancy yoga training, and our instructor who was teaching the other teachers, she really, really honed in on the fact about how, you don't want to collapse your arches during pregnancy, because once they collapse, then that's it for life. And you've got to like take care of them. I don't know if she's really trying to scare us, but
no, it's true, because pregnancy hormones actually loosen ligaments, including the ligaments of the foot. And in fact, an orthopedic surgeon from the UK who I have interviewed really stresses that bunions tend to get worse when you are pregnant. So yes, there are important factors. I think it's because of the ligamentous laxity, but also then again, I was talking about posture and how your center of gravity changes as well as your gait. Yeah. So I think that trifecta can really influence the changes in the whole body, including the foot. Really important to be mindful, certainly while you're pregnant, and then postpartum also. It's huge.
Yeah,
it is
absolutely
huge. I think very, very much undervalued and underemphasized and undertreated in our society.
Yeah,
for sure.
I know that I just think we hammer our feet so bad, and that's why I don't know. I have this little pet peeve about the foot stuff.
Well, kind of think about it, Colette. Would you drive the same tires on your car for 80 years? Without rotating them or changing them? I mean, imagine what would happen. And yet, we do, miles upon miles. If they say do an average of 10,000 steps a day, that's a solid 3 miles.
Yeah.
And picture that every day for 80 years.
I know.
Wow. I should calculate that.
Really.
and then when you're running, those forces increase even more. So it's so important to be mindful for your foot, not only for your foot, but again, for every area of the body that the foot is being supported by, particularly the knee and the hip, as well as the lower back and even above it. So like I said, the bottom can influence the top and the top can influence the bottom. It really needs to be a comprehensive idea. And many foot problems will influence things above it. I often say that every knee problem is a foot problem. And then also things like bunions, for example, there's a certain type of bunion that is influenced all the way up from the pelvis. So that's the bunion that really fails the surgery because the problem is not the root cause is not within the foot. It's in the pelvis. So really kind of fascinating.
You're making me think about my pelvis now. Doing my, rotating pelvic flow and all that kind of stuff. But that's from my yoga side.
No, it's so important. I think there are the four most undertreated areas of the human body are the foot, the pelvis, the rib cage, and the cranium.
Oh my gosh, is that right? I never heard that before.
And those are the players that typical massage, basic physical therapy, I would say, somebody who has not been around for 30 years will not properly address. So those are really undertreated areas, and I love treating all of them because I can make such a big impact on people who haven't been able to get help otherwise.
Yeah. Oh, that's incredible. And I mean, I could just talk to you for ages, but before we get too far ahead of ourselves, I did want to talk a little bit about kind of your backstory and how did you get into this, Deborah? Because, you've been in for over 30 years in the health industry. And, today you're focusing specifically, like you said, on the feet for the last however many years. But I know that there is story in there and history and so fill us in, like, how did this all begin for you?
I think I was born to do this, or life put me in this direction for sure. Whether and again, people believe different things, but I truly believe that I was put on this earth to do what I do. And circumstances in my life that didn't really make sense at the time are now coming together 30 years later. So it's a bit of a full circle. I always loved sports ever since I was a child. I loved the Olympics in particular. And as I grew older, I wanted to be a sportscaster. My parents felt that was too competitive, so I decided on physical therapy. Okay. And after trying to pursue that journey and not taking opportunities or making various choices, I actually wound up with a degree in fitness and cardiac rehab and a master's in exercise science. And then finally, 9 years later, I did become a physical therapist. So in that time, I worked in chiropractics, I worked in cardiac rehab, I worked as a personal trainer. I did, the gamut of health and fitness. And I just find the human body and how it works fascinating, as well as trying to figure out on my own and kind of make sense of things, why certain diseases and dysfunctions happen in a particular body. Because you could take two runners and you could train the exact same mileage, probably down the exact same path, using the exact same footwear. And what will manifest in your body will be completely different than somebody else's. Yeah. So what's the difference there? It's the body. So therefore, that's why, sometimes it's really important that we look at each individual, even though I do make DIY programs. However, I try to make them as complete as possible, thinking of every different avenue. And when it's done when you do it on yourself, it the key to it really is discomfort. And since everyone will experience some sort of discomfort, and that will be, some people might experience in their pinky toe, and somebody might experience it in their arch when they're doing the release technique. Well, wherever they're doing it is where they need to have that technique performed. So it does kind of encompass that. So, after I graduated from physical therapy after a 9-year journey, I was like, okay, what do I do now?
Yeah, what's now? What's now?
It's been my focus now for 9 years. Like,
I don't know.
Okay, what now? And, so I did a bit of soul searching about my mission, and it came to me that my mission is to empower people to heal themselves. And so, I started doing that in my practice, where I would educate a lot of my patients and teach them things that they could do on their own, because I'm only with somebody for, a finite amount of time, at the most maybe 45 minutes or an hour. There's only so much I can say in that period of time. And then I was saying things over and over again and the same things. And so I was getting sick of hearing it. And I'm like, the internet just started booming at that point in time. And back in 1998, I knew that I wanted to create online programs that would empower people to take control of their health and healing, and ultimately heal themselves. And then it took about 20 years for technology to allow a simple kid from Queens to be able to have that, have the ability to do that without costing millions and millions of dollars. And as much as I curse technology from time to time, I bless it,
as we all do,
to share information. So I have been creating the last 6 years online programs of things that I have learned and I have taught to other professionals, because I did and I do enjoy teaching to professionals as well. So
you're a teacher of teachers as well.
I am a teacher of teachers as well. Yes. So it is one of my joys, is to share my knowledge and hopefully make a difference in professionals as well as lay people, whoever wants to listen to me.
Exactly. Whoever wants to learn, exactly. And we love the learners, don't we?
Sure.
Oh, brilliant. Yeah, I love how you talked about the Olympics. Like, I definitely had a connection with the Olympics growing up as well. I knew I would probably never be on that stage myself, but there was something about the fascination of watching like people at their peak physical performance, and just like really enjoying watching that. But then you also see, watching sport, you see, especially like with YouTube and the internet these days, you see, oh, okay, well, for people like us, like what I would call like the normal people, not the pro athletes, but we're still into being active and into our fitness, we kind of see like backstage kind of what they're doing. It's like, oh, so-and-so cyclist has just done an 80-mile cycle today, and then they got in their ice bath and they're doing their cryotherapy and their heat stuff, and it's like you're kind of confused by it all, and you think, oh, well, that's what the pros do. But as you know, like with me, I also want to empower people to be like, we need to do this stuff too, because our bodies are just the same as theirs.
Yeah, and I was just going to say, for the professional athlete, it's their career. And that's one of the reasons why I love working with athletes, because it's really important to them. Yeah. And I can make, huge changes in working with athletes, particularly giving them the ability or the body to perform optimally, because there is a proper and an improper posture and alignment and movement pattern. If you correct the alignment, you correct the movement pattern, you are unstoppable. But any kink in that alignment or that structure, so to speak, is your weak link. And therefore it can be your demise or your Achilles heel, literally. And what I find surprising is that I often find that high level athletes are not well taken care of. Many of them.
Is that right?
I do. I find them to be a very vulnerable population because people are highly protective of them. And rather than refer out, a lot of times they will have, they'll have their inner circle that's almost impenetrable.
Yes.
Even for well-meaning people who, could possibly help them. And I've had colleagues even who work with both professional athletes and, celebrities. And that is, that's oftentimes, unfortunately, the case.
The hard part.
Yeah. So,
well, I was going to say, well, what can you, I wish that they get all the help that they need as well, because like when you see a pro athlete go and it's their career and their livelihood and then they struggle with that, it's just absolute torture. And in a similar way, for the way I can relate it to running moms is kind of like, or even just any kind of like parent with a young family just trying to get through normal life, is like, if you injure yourself and you can't go and exercise, you have no escape. You have no means of like letting out that like pent up energy and frustration. And it's what gets you to, like reset your mind and reset yourself so that you're able to be, a better parent. So if that injury comes along, you're not in a good place.
No. I sustained a weird hip thing this summer, and it came on, again, randomly, just doing something, nothing really, just moving weird. And I was really laid up. And for the first time in my daughter's 12 years on this earth, she wanted to go to the arcade. And I said, I can't. I can't walk there. I'm just too kind of beat up. And that's when I had to go back and tune in and say, oh, okay, well, now you're the physical therapist working on yourself. What would you do? And I came up with 8 steps to end pain ASAP. And once I incorporated that, I was back to full hiking in 17 days.
Oh, amazing.
17 days. But again, there's 8 things. And this is, so when you ask, what's my best advice or that kind of thing, here's the things that I find that people do wrong. One is that when you get hurt, you might try 1 or 2 things and then give up. And again, like I said, there's 8 steps to take when you are in pain to get out of pain ASAP. So you need to take all of them and you need to do them all together. Somebody might, they might throw ice on it. They might throw an anti-inflammatory on it. And then they're like, it's not going to get better. Or they do what I did and conveniently ignore it, go to Pilates and, and then ruin it even further. I mean, I've done all of the same things that I tell people not to do. And that's how I know that, and if I do it, then anybody could do it, and most people do it. And then the other thing is to, kind of take advice from well-meaning people who maybe aren't trained in this particular area. And I would even say doctors. I found that doctors are very myopic, because they specialize. And so they might be like a heart specialist, for example, and then they advise, and this is a true story. I had a person advise, a doctor, heart doctor, advise an 80-year-old woman to go out and run as fast as she could outside. Whoa. So he did not consider the fact that, individuals' balance, drops significantly, that the average single leg stand of a person over 80 is less than 1 second. Yeah. So he didn't consider the hazards outside. He was only looking at the heart.
The heart, yeah.
And, and then there's other things. Like I had an elderly woman who has a diagnosis of Parkinson's and, heard that yoga was good for it. Well, the medication for Parkinson's can lead to osteoporosis or osteopenia, and certain poses in yoga can elicit a stress fracture, which is what she wound up getting. So again, we have to kind of really think about, why are we choosing the fitness mode that we want? And so what's the purpose of it? Is it stress reduction? Is it, wanting to be outside? Is it social? Whatever it is, you need to consider that. And I don't ever like to discourage anybody from doing something that brings them joy with regard to their body. But I'd like to protect them as best possible so that they can do that with good integrity and without damaging themselves. Now, sometimes that does mean that you need to take a step back and baby yourself for, a week or two, and then start slowly and wisely. And that's what my programs teach people how to do.
Brilliant. Yeah. No, I love that. I love how you're talking about like getting people to think about the type of exercise they're doing and like what purpose is that for, because every type of exercise serves you differently. And, whether it's the physical body or it's the mind, or maybe it's spiritual for you, whatever it is, it's serving different needs. But like you said, you don't want to hurt yourself in the process. Right. So yeah, I really resonate with that. That's great. So I was also going to ask, what could you tell a runner basically in terms of, you're mentioning stuff about alignment and how alignment is really important in terms of the body, and like, can you talk about that in terms of a runner and how we can make sure that we're
I can talk about it in terms of everyone. I mean, I have a saying that alignment dictates function, frequency, and flow. So function, there's something called the length tension ratio that states that a muscle will contract with greatest vigor or strength when it's at a particular length. If it's too long, too short, it will not work optimally. Right. So there is a particular proper posture with regard to standing, to sitting, to moving, et cetera, et cetera. Now, I was not taught this in PT school. I was not taught this until I went to a continuing education seminar. And I thought that proper posture was with your shoulders back and your chest out.
Yeah.
And sure enough, my instructor took my rib cage and she aligned it, because the rib cage should go directly over the pelvis. Okay. And when she did that, I took 3 steps and I realized how much easier it was to move. And my thought to myself was, my God, how much energy am I wasting throughout the day by this abnormal posture? So with regard to the rib cage pelvis relationship, as I mentioned, there are 4 key areas. They happen to be the key areas for alignment as well: the foot, the pelvis, the rib cage, and the cranium. And what, with regard to the pelvis rib cage, the rib cage should be over the pelvis, not in front, like not rounded, and not shoulders back. It needs to be kind of grounded and straight over the pelvis. And I almost equate it to, like, think about a boat pulling a water skier, right? Or pulling something behind it, towing something, right? Yeah. And if it's a very long line, right? If it's towing like a water skier, then the boat has to use more energy, right? Yeah. But if that same weighted person was on the boat, it'd be a lot easier to pull, correct? It'd be a lot easier to move.
Yeah, because it wouldn't be towing the person.
Exactly. And it's kind of the same thing. The pelvis and rib cage are important for generating the motion forward. So if you're in the right alignment, every step that you take, you should have an abdominal contraction.
Okay. Oh, as in your
obliques, actually.
You're saying? Yeah.
Your obliques.
Yeah.
So the motion initiates from the obliques as you step forward, if you're in the right alignment.
Yes.
And when you're in that alignment, it's actually the best alignment for force absorption, right from the ground up and from the top down. So when I was struggling with my hip, I had to be very mindful of my upper body posture, because my tendency is to be a bit lordotic, to lead with my abdomen coming forward, right?
Okay.
So there's an arch in my back and an arch in my upper back.
Yeah, I think I do.
So,
I think
so
I do.
again, that is a key position, certainly, with regard to running. Like I've seen sprinters actually. I know there was a sprinter, Ben Johnson, years ago, and he was like here. And I was like, no. I mean, he could have probably shaved like a half second off of his dash.
Yeah.
If he were in the right alignment. So when you say, when we talk about Olympic athletes, I love watching them and being like, well, they're doing that wrong. And they're doing that wrong. And and they're breaking down here. And, I remember years ago, I was watching Rafa Nadal, and I'm like, I bet you it's his whatever knee it was, because he was plagued with knee injuries. I'm like, I bet you it's his, I forget which one it was, right or left. I bet you it's that knee. And so I was like searching through, and sure enough, I was right. I was like, yes.
You could see it the way that he played.
I could see it based on how he moved. So, like if I watch golf, I think golf's boring, but I find it fascinating to watch like the golfers and be like, yeah, they could do this and they could do that and they could do this. So it's
incredible.
It becomes kind of fun for me. And I've been working with some figure skaters, and I was at practice for one of them not too long ago. And during a spin, she was compensating. She wasn't able to grab her skate for during the spin.
They hold the back.
Yeah, it was kind of like that, but it was looking really ugly. And I said to her coach, I'm like, is that supposed to look that way? She's like, no, she doesn't have the range. So sure enough, I got her. I treated her actually in that position, not on skates, but on the ground, and improved her range of motion, gave her the body that could be able to do it. So the body doesn't care how it accomplishes a task. It just wants to get it done. So we don't tune in and we don't think about our alignment until something happens, and then we learn differently. Yeah. Because again, this is not something that we're instructed on. And it's just fascinating that I continue to learn through my own body and through the people that I work with about various different muscles and recruitment and stuff, even through the foot. It's really incredible. Creating new exercises, new ways to target different areas and whatnot that are more important for function.
Definitely.
So when we go into, so that's the tip for the pelvis rib cage, right?
Yes.
The head should be right over the rib cage in normal alignment. Now, breathing. Who knew that there was a right way to breathe? There is a right way to breathe, or I should say, an optimal way to breathe.
Perfect.
And,
do tell.
Yeah. So there's a lot of work going on about this right now, and it goes into the airway and the shape of the palate in particular. So in one of my programs called Correcticize, it's a full body program. I teach people how to release the connective tissue within the mouth.
Okay.
And the ideal position for breathing optimally is with the flat part of the tongue on the roof of the mouth. And there is a fascial connection between the tongue and the big toe. So it goes all the way through the body, all the way down to the big toe.
You're joking.
I am not kidding. And what I found, particularly with the tongue on the roof of the mouth, is improved stability within the cranium. That would include the TMJ, improved breathing, as well as improved cervical stability. So the tongue is one of the strongest muscles in the body with the greatest amount of endurance, because we talk a lot.
We talk, we eat.
Yeah, exactly. And so, and it can be used. It can be used to help us. So again, resting the flat part of the tongue on the roof of the mouth, that would be the best thing to do for breathing and our neck alignment. Mm-hmm. And then with regard to our feet, so I specialize in an area of the foot called the forefoot. And the forefoot, actually I have I have a foot here.
You have something. Oh, cool. I like this. So we get practical. Good.
Yeah. So, okay. So let's see here. This is the big toe. Okay.
Yeah.
And then this is kind of where the arch of the foot starts. Okay.
So for those who are listening, it's about in the middle of the foot. Yeah.
Yeah. So the forefoot is actually from where the arch starts to the tip of the toes. And this is where a lot of foot dysfunctions come into play. Things like stress fractures are very, very susceptible in these bones right here. These are called the metatarsals. They're like long seesaws.
Yes.
Okay. And then we have the joints of the toe. You have 2 joints in the big toe and then 3 in the 5 other toes. And many professionals who deal with feet ignore this part of the foot, where this part of the foot neurologically has the same dexterity as your hands. It has, I think, 33 joints, 18 bones and 22 muscles, or 22 muscles and 18 bones, just in this area, right? So people who have been born without hands can actually use their feet for anything. There's a YouTube guy like tossing salad with his toes, because he was born without arms. So we have the capability of a lot of freedom in the toes, and yet we don't strengthen them. We don't keep them mobile, this particular area in general. So a lot of mobility comes in the ankle, right? So we do a lot of calf stretches, and then maybe we'll, and this, I hate when this happens, when people roll a ball under their foot. A ball, I don't have one in front of me, but a ball is like, could be like this big. Okay. Yes. I'm getting no specificity here. Right? Look at how tiny these joints are.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm taking a ball and I'm trying to work these individual joints. So in my programs, I use a pencil eraser and get into the various different joints, particularly this is called the midfoot.
What, to actually massage them?
Here. And the midfoot tends to be very stable because they're small, tight joints.
Yes.
And these typically need to be mobile, particularly the ones that articulate or touch the first metatarsal, the second, and the third. These are called the cuneiforms. And these guys tend to be bugaboos, even for people who have a pronated foot. And people will say people with a pronated foot have, are hypermobile. They have too much mobility. Well, they have too much mobility right here. But the reason that somebody has too much mobility is because they have too little mobility someplace else, usually nearby. And typically it's right here.
Got it.
It's right here. So, so the idea is to try to do our best to make the area that moves too much stable. And there are ways to do that, multiple ways to do that. And then, but if you do that and you don't take away the root cause, what's the root cause? Something's not moving enough, right?
Yeah, exactly.
If you only deal with one, you're never going to have long-term success. You have to deal with everything.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you were talking, so you use a pencil eraser. Is that to massage in between each?
Yeah, except I don't massage. I do something, I call it the comprehensive core release. And so I don't like rubbing. I find rubbing, rubbing can be soothing. It can be really noxious too.
Yes.
Right. But what I would do if this was my foot, I would go into the connective tissue. Okay. And I feel for tenderness. If I find a tender spot, okay, I'll go around my imaginary clock. I keep the depth, go around an imaginary clock and find the direction that's most tender. Yes. I hold it there. Then I press the tongue on the roof of my mouth, and then I move about the releasing tool. So if it were my toes, I'd be scrunching my toes or moving my knee up and down or moving about the releasing tool. And that way, I'm creating a movement pattern. So remember I said, if you want to become unstoppable. It's your alignment and your movement pattern needs to be ideal. So when I'm moving about my releasing tool, I'm creating a movement pattern. So that's an error that a lot of people, runners and general public make, is that they use a releasing tool that's too big and they're massaging it rather than moving about it. And they don't release on top. So here's the thing. We're three-dimensional.
Oh, yeah.
Right? To only rub underneath the foot is, I'm sorry, not three-dimensional. It's one-dimensional, right? So we have to get around all of the structures, the bony structures, okay, to release the connective tissue that is about it. So not only do we do, top, bottom, sides, inside, outside, anywhere that you can really get to, but that movement is really in only two planes, right? Top, bottom, sides. However, there's a third axis of movement that is rotation. So right. So again, if I'm here, I'm here, right? And I go forward, backward, side, right? Then there's rotation. Yeah, rotation. Okay. So we have this, right? Forward, backward, and then this, right? So there's three dimensions of movement as well. And so we have to address rotation. So recently, like within the last 3 years, I started incorporating something I call rotational release, which is exactly like the comprehensive core, except I challenge rotation at each particular structure.
That is brilliant. Yeah, you just really gave me kind of like an epiphany there, because when I was learning all the foot exercises that we were meant to do for pregnant women and pregnancy yoga, and that I've carried, like, just inadvertently kind of carried on post-pregnancy and into my like running career now. I posted a video recently on my Instagram that was like just a 3-minute like stretch session, and it goes through all those, well, I can't do it, like ups and downs, side to side, and then the rotation. And now I know why. Like it's amazing. Like you just do it because you're told that this is what you do. The exercises to make your foot strong. But now that is incredible to understand about like the 3D aspects and the certain bones in the top of the foot. And wow.
And every joint has 3 degrees of motion. Some have more rotation than flexion, extension, or what we call AB, adduction, right? And then others have more in one or the other, but every one of them will have 3-dimensional movement. So they all have to have that aspect of it, particularly in the lower leg. There are the last, I think it's 3 or 5 degrees of extension of the knee is rotation of the lower leg about the femur. So there's a rotation to lock it and a derotation to unlock it. Okay. And so again, it's really important that we have that mobility in every direction, not only for movement, but then also force absorption. So again, there's the second reason why people get injured is because of force absorption. So that the forces aren't being able to be distributed, right? So if I'm saying that there's 33 joints right here, imagine how much force you could absorb if you had good mobility in all these 33 joints.
Yeah, a lot, probably.
Right? But if you don't do any work here, like most people don't, then where are you getting all your impact, right? If this is hard, you're getting it at its weakest link. That's as simple as I can explain it.
So is that what you say is that what you think, or what causes injury then? Is it basically an area in the foot or in the body that isn't mobile enough or something? I don't know.
That's a great question. Typically, the injury will occur at the weakest link if it's an absorption issue, right? Because there's two reasons. It's either absorption or it's a mobility problem. Okay. And they are related, right? Because if you have good mobility, you'll have good absorption, right? Yeah. In all of the joints. The other thing is that typically people will get breakdown or pain, right? If it's not an impact issue. So your husband, for example, you told me he fractured his sesamoid, right?
Yep.
That's impact. I believe that was an impact issue. Okay.
Yeah.
The other reason is that there's an imbalance between mobility. Okay. So if something is moving too little, right, things around it will need to move too much in order to achieve the motion. Remember, I said the body doesn't care how it does something. It just wants to get it done.
Yes.
So
it's going to compensate.
Again, if something's not moving too much, or like, unless you're me, you're not going to say, oh, T6 is a little tight there. So, you're not going to be thinking that to yourself, but you will manifest pain in the area that moves too much. And then what happens is that the inflammatory process gets off, and then it becomes stiffened, because when we inflame, it's like creating our own cast. Now, here's the kicker. For every cubic centimeter of inflammation, a muscle will shut down by 1%. The muscles that are closest to the joint that becomes inflamed, they are your core muscles, which are your protective muscles that protect the joint so that it moves well, properly, with great integrity, movement patterns, right? Proper movement patterns. And they are in control. The core muscles, they protect, and then they allow the moving muscles to move effectively.
Okay.
So remember I said I was destined to do this?
Yeah.
Back in undergrad, when I was an athletic training major, I had a question on an exam that I got wrong. And I shouldn't have gotten it wrong.
Okay.
But because I got this question wrong, I remember this principle about the core muscles. So it was a question: what is the primary abductor, arm out to the side, of the shoulder? And that's the mover is primarily the deltoid, right? That's the moving muscle. However, if you don't have an intact rotator cuff, you can't do this. So the answer was the supraspinatus, which, if you look at any kinesiology biomechanics book, will not say that it abducts the shoulder. So it's a trick question.
Oh, whoa.
Because
that is way beyond me.
You needed that muscle to allow the moving muscles to work. That's what the core muscles do.
Okay.
So when you have inflammation, it becomes a bugaboo for a couple of reasons. One, it causes pain, but then it causes the core muscles to shut down. And if that's happening, you have to reactivate the core muscles. Now, what did I just say? Core muscles are not moving muscles. So what will people do? They'll do exercises like lifts and stuff like that. That's not what you need to do.
No.
You need to do a stabilizing exercise that will hold that joint and challenge it in its integrity in a static position. I need an isometric exercise.
By itself, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And that's where people are, even PTs, with the exception of lumbar stabilization exercises, which the PTs finally got right.
Yeah.
Keep your abs tight, move your legs, right? No movement, stability, right?
Yeah.
Except for some reason, they chose to ignore that with the rest of the body. Again, particularly the toes. The toes and the lower leg. So when you're looking at those types of things, the toes, again, they're important for the integrity of the arch. They're going to be important for absorption. They need to have mobility and stability, particularly for balance. Is another important thing. So again, like I said, shock absorption or excessive mobility. So we want typically more mobility here, right? And therefore we need to stabilize here and stabilize here.
Wow.
Yeah. So again, it's a balancing act, and like I said, a lot of well-meaning people will suggest doing something like moving or stretching a damaged joint. Not a good idea. You want to get back to that, but you only want to get back to that when the inflammation is gone and those core muscles are backfiring because they're getting shut down by the inflammation.
Sure.
So when I experience my own hip thing, I don't like to take drugs, any kinds. And so I decided, I made an executive decision to take aspirin, just go back to old aspirin. But I had an exit strategy, you know, I was on it so that I could get rid of the inflammation, get the core muscles firing again, because if I don't get rid of the inflammation, the core muscles are never going to fire. And then the joint's never going to get protected. So
now this may sound like a silly question, but in layman's terms for the listeners and myself, when you're speaking about core muscles, do you mean core muscles of that part of the body, or
every joint in the body has core muscles? So we only think about our abdominal core, but we have core muscles in every joint of the body.
In every area, in every area of the body.
Typically, your core muscles are deep. So they're not superficial, they're very deep. They are usually diagonally oriented. So remember I talked about rotation?
Yes.
They are typically rotators.
Yeah.
Typically, if you look up their motion, they typically have a rotational motion and they are deep. They are typically one joint. They usually cross one joint. So yeah. And
would you consider because this is one I think we get a lot as runners is in our butt, the one that's called the piriformis, and it's so deep. It's so deep to get into that. Like I've tried massage on that before, where you just kind of have to, and tell me if this is right, but just like it's almost like what you were saying earlier, where you just have to push on it long enough, not like massaging it, but like push deep, almost to give it time to like release and relax around it or something.
Well, what I do again is I go in, right? Yeah. And again, the smaller the releasing tool, the more specific. The more specific, the more superior the result. So, you know, there are people that have releasing tools that I think are way too big. They're not specific enough and they take a lot longer to release. So again, if you have time on your hands, then, you know, and you like doing it, you know, Godspeed. Yeah. I don't. So I would take the J part of a cane, right?
Oh, yes. Okay.
Yeah. The J part of a cane, stick it in the butt, pull forward. You know, again, they have these Theracanes, at least in the US.
Yeah.
You find the spot, you move it around the imaginary clock, you find the depth, you know, you find the direction that's most tender, and then you move the lower leg about it. So you can move in and out, like with your foot, like in and out. So you're moving about that releasing tool. It takes about 10 seconds. Yeah. And the release technique, again, I call it the comprehensive core. It takes, don't do it for more than 10 seconds. And it can be exquisitely tender. Yeah. But you're in control. That's another reason why I like that technique, because you're moving about the releasing tool.
Yes.
So you are in control of the movement.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So again, you can do any movement, whatever elicits the release. And so that's why I like it. So again, in the correct exercise program, we do this from toe to head. We go through every joint in the body and teach you the comprehensive core, which was all last year. And now next year, I'm going to be teaching those stabilizing exercises at every joint. So if you do go into a pain cycle, then you can download my PDF and watch my little video on it. But also then you would know the appropriate exercises to reactivate those core muscles.
Perfect.
Yeah. Wow. So that's, that's kind of exciting. So I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, no, that sounds like such an incredible journey. Like you've got this correct exercise program right now, which like I'm going to talk to you more about in a minute. But it sounds like you have this great plan lined out of a way to kind of like help people in a solid way. And I love that. So one last quick question, and then I'm going to move into the where we ask the questions at the end of our guests at the end of every show. And it's just a little bit of fun. But I wanted to ask one last thing about our the release tool. You know how you said some release tools are too big, and I bet other people would be interested to know this. Is there a way of telling how a release tool might be too big on a certain part of the body? Like, because obviously you have all the different body parts. But
understood. Yeah, I would say the best way. I believe, you know, obviously the larger the area, like when you're talking about the glute, that could be a bigger releasing tool for sure. Yeah. I still, because when I'm working on a patient with manual therapy, I'm releasing with my thumb. So that's pretty small. So I like to use a smaller releasing tool. Yeah. Because again, it's more specific, and the superior, the result. So typically the biggest thing that I use would be a regular standard eraser, like a small pink eraser that doesn't have a pencil attached to it. Yeah. That corner is very, very good for different areas. Most areas of the body, actually. When I work inside the mouth, I will either use pencil or a gloved finger to do those areas there. Incredible. So again, you really do want to kind of keep it, the smaller the better. The smaller the better. The smaller the better. And so again, I think that's why people are spending like hours on a foam roller, just because it's too big. Well, yeah, exactly. So you can you probably get some benefits from it, but you're not going to get like deep. No. I've been doing this for a long time, and I haven't found a better way to release except for that. And then also we talk about the rotational release as well, which you really do have to do manually. With your hands. And that's with a professional, you know, that's not something. Well, you can do it on yourself. You just have to, use your hands. Yeah. For that one. The other ones you can use a releasing tool, which is great, but rotational release, you have to do manually. Perfect. Yeah. There's no tool for that. Great. Well, let me, we'll move on to the next part of the show. Cause like I said, I could talk to you for hours. I'm like, please tell me more. It's amazing. You're like a walking dictionary for physical. Yes. Like I said, I'll talk to anyone who will listen. Brilliant. Okay. So let's start closing down the show by talking, about the few questions we ask every guest. And the first one is, what would you say is your favorite health or like fitness wellness kind of related book? And it could be like as recent or of all time. I would say that there are many. I do love the ones that are oftentimes written by doctors, about patient care. So Oliver Sacks is a great author. He was a neurologist from the UK, actually. Oh, really? And very famous, writes fascinating books. The second is Dr. Norman Doige, Doige. He's also an MD, and I really loved his books. But this one I have right here was written by a layperson. It's called Balance in Search of the Lost Sense, and it's by Scott McCready. And a patient turned me on to this because she read a review in the New York Times. And he was a layperson who observed his dad falling while hiking and wanted to understand balance. And so I based my first continuing education course off of this book primarily. Brilliant. Yeah. So it's written in layman's terms, and there is research. Meaning anybody can understand it. Meaning anybody can understand it. It does mention research studies, and it does give you some practical exercises to do, because balance is not just the foot, right? It has to do with our vestibular system, our sights. There's many, many factors that go into it. It's multifactorial. So if somebody has a balance issue, it might be something in the cranium. So again, one of my favorite places to treat. Oh, wow. Really cool. Yeah. My husband's grandmother, she had problems with the inner ear for a long time later in life. And she was
She really had trouble. She had to use it. She had to use a cane because she was forced to use a cane because of her balance issues, not because she was old.
Sure.
Like if you told her she was old,
Yeah.
forget about it. But yeah, really fascinating. So I'll look into those for sure. And I'll put them on the like show notes
Sure.
if I can find it. So number 2, what are some of your hobbies aside from physical therapy and all the health related stuff you do?
I think I mentioned to you at least, I've been an athlete since I was 12. So I love to exercise. I hate the gym, but I love being outdoors and exercising. So I'm an avid skier and I water ski and I love to rollerblade. So
Excellent.
I started rollerblading, when it was cool. And in fact, when I lived in New York City and I was treating patients in their homes, I would skate. So I skated all over Manhattan. I skated over bridges.
I love that.
I used to skate over the Brooklyn Bridge into Brooklyn from Manhattan. I mean, I did miles every day. And I really loved, I love that. So anything that's involved outdoors.
Yeah.
So,
no, I hear you.
Sometimes my friends.
I think it's easy to get led when people think fitness. And I think the psyche and the mindset around that's changing with society now. But like when I was younger, I used to think, oh, fitness, that's going to the gym and all that. And I tried to get into it and I did do it for a while. And obviously weights and stuff have their place and like the indoor stuff all have their place. But I'm right there with you. I love the outside exercise, nature, getting in touch with nature again. And it just does amazing things for your health and wellness.
One of the best things that I bought in the last year was an inflatable kayak, 2-person. It's about 12 feet. And so I could put it in my car and I have an electrical pump and I live right on the water on the Gulf of Mexico. And so I just take it to different parts of Florida where there's a ramp or I can throw it in the water. And, there are, last week I had gone and we saw a couple of manatee, dolphin, and an iguana. And then you see like these like flying fish go out of the water. And then we have, what are they called? Mangroves. So there are actually like tunnels of mangroves that you can kayak in. Sometimes you have to like take the kayak down because they're narrow. Yeah. And you just see amazing wildlife and you're in the shade and it's like you're in the Amazon, like, going someplace.
Beautiful.
So, yeah, it's that is something that I've learned to really appreciate and enjoy about living in the middle of Florida.
Oh, manatee. I've never seen a manatee. That must have been incredible.
They're great. They're a bit elusive.
I can imagine.
They only stick their nose up, where the dolphin, you'll see the tail or you'll see the dorsal fin. And it's so great when you can hear them, It's just, it's really special.
Really cool noise.
Yeah.
All right. Cool. Question number 3. What's one tip you'd give your younger self when it comes to your health?
Listen to your body. I should say, don't be stupid. Like I said, I've made the same mistakes where, I'll be hurt and I'll just go out and exercise anyway without doing anything to help myself. And that just kicks me in the butt every time. Yeah. So listen to your body.
Listen to your body. I always find that when you're even more knowledgeable about something to help other people, it doesn't always mean you're going to follow it yourself.
No, like I said, I did everything wrong until until I just couldn't do anything anymore. And I was like, okay, wait,
how am I going to fix this?
Right.
But it all happens for a reason, right? Because otherwise you wouldn't have come up with
I came up with the 8 steps to end pain ASAP. Yeah. So yes,
exactly.
I did.
Perfect. See, there's a reason for everything.
Yes.
Great. Okay. So number 4, where can people find out more about you?
Very good. So Yes, there we go. Support it. DLWalkerConsultant.com. Email is support@DLWalkerConsultant.com.
Okay.
I am on Facebook at as DL Walker, and Fix You Online TV on YouTube. So YouTube is kind of where I started. There are probably hundreds of videos about foot care, about general exercise. You know, anything I kind of think of to post, I will post. And you know, again, recently, my original training and obviously, you know, where I started was all about the body. But lately, I've been really getting into the mind and energy. So I think that we have a trilogy of health, well-being, and healing, and it's body, mind, and energy. And so many of us just focus on the body, whereas the mind, the mindset, and certainly the energy might be the missing components of why you're not recovering.
Yeah, so, I couldn't agree more. Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, well, we hope to see more of that from you in the future. So
non-correcticize.
Exactly. So yeah, so that's again YouTube Fix You Online TV, and I will definitely be looking that up if you've got lots of videos on there about foot care, because I'll be right up there. And then the Facebook page Fix You Online. So I'll make sure to put that in the show notes as well. And just thank you so much for
my pleasure.
Giving from your heart
this is
today,
great.
Deborah.
Thank you so much.
I know we basically ran way over. We were planning for this to be a lot shorter, but I could not stop it. It was just like one gold nugget after the other, and I couldn't help it. So it was much appreciated.
My pleasure.
Brilliant. Well, we'll keep a close eye on you, and we'll definitely invite you back to the show when you whenever you want to come, really. Whenever you want to go. So thank you so much.
I think my next challenge of the foot might be tibialis posterior syndrome.
Oh, excellent.
That's an elusive one. That is an elusive one.
Yeah, and
I figured out hallux rigidus limitus. Now I need to figure out the posterior tib.
The other one. Perfect. Yeah, because as we know, it's a common runner injury. So that would be perfect.
Yes.
Oh, great. Well, have a wonderful day.
So
we'll speak to you soon. Thanks a lot, Deborah.
Bye now. Bye. Thank you.
Bye.